Well, so this is our new wildlife facility. At the latest by the 1st of November to be up and running and have a public opening, even if it's a virtual one at some point. But we're standing in the receiving or reception area, and soon, once we are open, this will host work by local artists, and the artists want to support the rehab center by donating a portion of their proceeds back to the center, but it also helps to get word out about those local artists. Meal prep will go on here, and there's a lot of meal prep that's involved for the animals. That's probably the majority of our day, aside from cleaning. And so that really makes this the center of the hospital. Like I said, kind of the hub of the whole operation. Everything is based from this point.
How many meals a day do they get?
Depends on what they are. Okay. So some things eat once a day. A lot of our raptors just traditionally eat once a day. In the wild, sometimes it's every other day. And so for them to have a daily meal is pretty good insurance for them. Some of the younger raptors will eat 2 to 3 times a day. Songbird babies will eat every 15 to 20 minutes. And so it really depends on the species. Mammals, when the infants come in, they're eating every 2 to 4 hours. And some of the adults then are down to 1 or 2 meals a day, depending on what's going on. Actually, gophers, we get donated. So some of the local trappers who trap gophers and get paid for their tails, they have the rest of the carcass to dispose of. And so rather than that going to waste, they bring us those every day fresh. But we also have local hunters who bring us cottontails and jackrabbits to feed as well. And that helps keep the food bill down, because we'll spend sometimes anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a month just on mice and rats that we order in frozen. She has, the upper part of her wing has been injured, and so she's not able to fly at all. And so we actually had some ramps and things built for her enclosure so that she can get up onto the higher perches with less trouble. So Gwen is fully flighted but has a cataract in one eye. She's our great horned owl. And this is where he comes in here at night. He's locked in at night, so we don't have to worry about predators getting him. So he has a little alleyway that takes him into his outdoor area for the day. And so his pond is filtered naturally, so on the outside is a bog filter. Nice. And so it's a layer of gravel with some plants in there, and the dirty water is siphoned, pumped from the bottom of the pool up into the bog filter, circulates through there, and comes back clean. So
let me ask you what he would like to eat. What does he eat?
Fish. Yeah, strictly fish.
Just totally fish.
During the summer months, it's nice because we have people who will catch catfish and carp for him and bring those in. And so then he really prefers those, especially when they're fresh. During the winter, we have to buy fish. So Albertsons has been great. They work with us on the price. We'll buy a box of trout. And the only hitch with that is we have to supplement his diet at that point, because there are certain vitamins and minerals that deplete very quickly. Within 30 minutes of a fish dying, those can be depleted. And so we have to add those back into his meal so that he doesn't have any nutritional deficiencies.
Right on the inside.
We have a boatload of Mississippi kites. Some people love them, and if you apparently have gone to any of the campuses, you really kind of don't like them anymore because they attack you. But they do, yeah. So they're one of the few raptors that are comfortable living right in town. And their diet, there are times of the year when their diet consists of about 70% insects. And so they eat a lot of bugs, which is great. Most of the time, people have no idea that they're even living in their backyard until their babies fled and are on the ground. And then we get these panicked phone calls because there's this baby bird on the ground or an injured bird on the ground, when in fact it's a fledgling kite. We have a golden eagle in one of the flights. She is molting in some feathers. She was shot. Luckily, it didn't hit any bones or major organs or anything, but it sheared off flight feathers on one wing. So every animal that comes into the facility receives an ID number, and so it starts with the year, the last two digits of the year. So these would be 20 dash, and then we just consecutively number them as they come through. And we're up now well over 500 just for 2020. But it does give each one an individual identification, and they have a medical record that's generated, and so all of the physical exam findings and history of where they were found, what the situation was, all of that information is recorded and carried through on their record, and then the record's continued until they're released or euthanized or transferred to another facility. So we have nets, and some of the enclosures they can partition off. So especially our big circular flight, we have nets that drop down and block the flyway and at least slow them down. Sometimes they figure out how to go around those nets, but at least we can sort of section an area off and slow them down, and then catch them with the long-handled nets or towels or blankets. Some of the flight cages are set up so that we can open a door to the outside, because some species are very particular and easy to stress, and so we don't want to injure them or cause them additional stress by trying to chase them down in a pen and catch them. Cooper's hawks in particular are one of the worst, and I know of cases where Cooper's hawks have been injured or killed in the process of trying to catch them to get them out into the wild, just because they are so high stressed. And so once they are ready to go in those cases, we can just literally pop the doors open and let them leave on their own. And that sometimes is the safest way to go.
I know, like, some people think, that keeping animals secluded is like cruel. They don't understand like the importance of keeping them like away from people. Is that correct?
Right. And so deer in particular can be very dependent on people when they're younger. They come in still nursing age when they come in here, and so they're used to seeing people 2 or 3 times a day, even when we have bottle holders up, unless they're independent. And so after we get them weaned, we don't want them to be friendly with people. We don't want them to be accustomed to people. And so we have a different pen that we move them into that has belting around it to provide a visual barrier. And so it puts them in a new location, different sights, different smells, different sounds, so that they're becoming unaccustomed to relying on people, because for their own safety, we don't want them to be comfortable just walking up to any random person. It's a good way to get somebody hurt or get them hurt. And so we want them to become distant from people, become wary of people, so that when they do go back into the wild, they're safe. I really wouldn't encourage people hand feeding wildlife, but I think people take for granted that a wild animal is a wild animal. And if it feels threatened, if it feels like it's in danger, it will protect itself, and it will do so at the cost of anything around it. And even if it's just out of fear, it can cause severe injury or death. Yeah, there definitely are animals that carry diseases that are zoonotic, so diseases that can pass between animals and people. And it goes both ways. It's not just from wildlife or from animals to people, but from people to animals. And so, you bring a good point about plague. Plague is actually transmitted by the fleas that are carried on the rabbits, but rabbits can carry tularemia. it's a bacteria, Francisella tularensis, that it can cause a very devastating and lethal disease in people. And so far we've had 2 deer fawn brought in, one that we ended up having to euthanize because of her injuries, and the other one we turned it right back around and got it back out to the area from which it came because it was perfectly healthy and just needed to go wait for mom to show up. So that's something we do. We try to do a lot of education with people when they call. There'll be jogging trails and hiking trails that are in deer country, and it's not uncommon for one of these folks to find a deer that's been bedded down, a little fawn, bedded down under a bush for the day so mom can go eat and drink and do her thing, and baby's perfectly healthy and just hiding and doing its thing, waiting for mom to come back, and somebody finds it and says, "Oh my gosh, it's an abandoned fawn, I don't see mom anywhere around." That's because she's hiding and waiting for you to leave. Same way with, fledgling birds. We get so many calls for fledgling birds, whether it's songbirds or raptors. Owls in particular. Owls climb trees. They climb down from trees, walk around on the ground, climb right back up the tree. They do what owl babies do. People find them on the ground and, "Oh my gosh, this baby out of its nest, it's dead and it needs help." No, leave them alone.
If someone finds a cub out in the wild, like let's say they find coyote cubs or wolf cubs, and they try to raise them as their pets, would you agree with this or no?
No, for a lot of reasons. Coyotes actually aren't protected. That legally they could probably get away with that. I still wouldn't condone it because again they are wild, and that instinct is always going to be there, even when they're tamed down. I mean, we had a set of 3 coyote pups that we placed at the zoo in Edgewood, and even though they came to us when their eyes were still closed, we raised them. They were somewhat imprinted, and we knew they were going to be because we had no surrogate, no way to keep them from imprinting on people. And so we planned early on with those to place them in a zoo. And Wildlife West was kind enough to take them in, and they've done a wonderful job with them. But even though they've been around people their whole life, they still get really nervous. Other species, foxes, wolves, even bobcats, it's illegal to have those.
So the best bet if someone finds them is to either contact a wildlife rehabilitation center or their local zoo or game warden probably.
Game warden, yeah, absolutely. A game officer or a rehabilitation center. You certainly can specialize in veterinary medicine as well. Just like with people, there are specialists for different body systems or different types of issues like cancer or orthopedic surgery or whatever the specialty may be.
But you do it all.
Veterinarians generally are working on a variety of species. Certainly that doesn't make us an expert in every one of those areas. Honestly, the best thing we can do is to have a good network in place so that we have people we can call with questions. If it's a species we've not worked on before, if it's a disease we've never seen, it's going to be a minimum of 7 years of college because it takes at least 3 years just to get the prerequisites for veterinary school. So all the science and math and everything that's needed for that. And then vet school itself is 4 years. And then if you go on to specialize, you're looking at another 3 or 4 years of internship and residencies. There are classes and options available for veterinarians who want to specialize in wildlife. Internships and externships are becoming more common. To be a vet, science and math definitely are the strong areas. Math probably is one of the subjects that really gives people the most trouble. But all the different sciences, chemistry, physics, microbiology, all of those things really do play a role. The sacrifices that you make to run a clinic or to work in a clinic, it can really be a challenge for somebody who, it's a lot to take in. It's a big job, and so I think it's important for young people to see what a veterinary clinic is like behind the scenes. Be there for the good times, be there for the bad times, be there for the late nights, you know, if you can. Yeah. So we take donations in just about any form. Our website does now have a PayPal link on it. We can take donations through Amazon Smile. We even take donations in kind. So they can call the clinic number and get a list of some of the everyday items that we need. And it's things you don't think about, like trash bags and duct tape and paper towels and cleaners and, you know, just the common everyday items. But we do accept cash and check donations as well. So the website is Desert Willow Wildlife Rehabilitation.com. And we do have a Facebook page. So you can look us up on Facebook and Instagram. We haven't. If you want to volunteer, you can come by or contact us. We do have a volunteer application.